Good morning. I'm Catherine Ross, and I'm here with Jim Cramer. We are joining you via Skype because we are practicing social distancing. So, Jim, what's top of mind for you this morning?
Oil. When the futures were up huge, oil was up a couple of bucks. And I think people have to realize what's the cart and what's the horse. Now, this is a very machine-driven, algorithmic market because the individuals have really defaulted to being in the S&P, and there's no new money coming in the market. So the trader at the margin, so to speak, of using economics, is keying off of something. What they're keying off of is oil. So if oil had stayed up $2, we'd be up about 400, 500 points. Now, someone might just say, well, that's just fanciful and stupid. I've always contended that it doesn't matter what you think is rational. It matters what the machines think is rational. So you may think the machines are irrational, as I do. What the hell, oil? I mean, come on, because that's 300 billion in high yield debt that could be in trouble versus all the other things that are out there. But when oil reversed, our futures headed right down. So just be aware that you may not think that's top of mind. You're worried about the long lines at hospitals, or you're worried about people, workers not being paid. But the machines, the guys who are at the margin trading, care about oil. And when oil went down, they freaked out and sold stocks.
Let's talk about that volatility that you just referenced. I mean, futures were pointing up and then we kind of went down, and now it looks like the Dow's up about 100 points.
Right.
Jim, when do we see the bottom of this market?
Well, I mean, look, Larry Williams, who's one of my favorite technicians, and that's Williams percentage R for those who follow the technicals. He's that big a dean that we speak of him by numbers. He is saying that this is a panic, and that 66% of the time we see a bottom just from this kind of panic, and then even much higher when you take a look and say like 3, 4 weeks out. I think he could be right if the Regeneron drug, or if this hydrochlor the let's call it the malaria drug, if the malaria drug's testing, and right now it's looking very good in a test in France. If the malaria drug is tested, and just because you have a small sample doesn't mean that's a test. You have to do a huge test of thousands of people. And I wish that they would not do it that way, but that's the way they do it. I would prefer them to just say, okay, listen, let's just start the thing on the people in Italy because they're dying horribly there. But they don't do it that way because they've got their way to do things and they're not going to deviate, even though the FDA is working fast. But if we could get the malaria drug, or get the monoclonal antibody drug of Regeneron, or their older antiviral that's for the antiviral that was originally for RA. We get one of those to work. We finally get the testing that we need so that if you are safe and healthy, which is really important, because then you can go back to work. Then I think we can avoid the $4 or $5 trillion bailout that I think is necessary. I have been right about this thing since I came back from the Super Bowl, and people thought I cried wolf, and people thought that I was way overdoing it, like I did in 2007. But this time, there's no people out to ridicule me, and just they accept it. But I was widely ridiculed, or at least viewed as being someone who was unstable because he came back from the Super Bowl without watching the game and was very worried about COVID. Even ran a tape of me and Dave Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, great hedge fund manager, being worried about this COVID. But now everybody's figured it out, and it's really in the last 2 days that this nation's been gripped by it. And I'm saying that it's big. It's just far bigger than they think in Washington, because $1 trillion is not big when it comes to a service economy. So what they should be doing, as I've said from the beginning, is not try to figure out a number. Just say, okay, listen, we're going to start with $1 trillion. If it needs more, we're going to give it more, so that the average person in America doesn't think, oh, that's it. I got my $1,000 and now I got to go starve 3 weeks from now. So, I mean, they have to recognize that they've shut probably 2/3 of the businesses in the country. And we can't just have it so that those people, whatever they stocked up, they eat, and then when they're done, they can't afford it. So my focus is on the working person and trying to make it be people understand that the working person is going to be let down here if they just think about 1 trillion, trillion three.
Yeah, and speaking of the working person, this administration is reportedly asking states to maybe hold off on releasing the jobless claims next week. And Goldman Sachs sees these jobless claims as possibly being in the millions. How important is it at this point to get those jobless claims and see just how bad this impact is for investors?
Well, I mean, I think that the jobless claims won't mean as much as the numbers I expect to see across the country for testing. I live in Brooklyn, which is for some reason the most number of people that have the COVID virus in the country is the Brooklyn area, and that's obviously not true. It just happens to be the area that had the most tests. So I think a combination of looking at the numbers and I want to criticize the administration for a lot, but you let them batch them. I mean, the numbers are going to be horrendous whether they come out today or they come out Thursday. I mean, I actually like people to know. So you have the jobless claims that are going to be unbelievable, and you have the huge spike in the number of people who are infected. We won't have any numbers about how many people have already been infected and are better, which is the real number that we need. Against that, we're incredibly oversold. And a lot of people sold into that just abyss 2 days ago. That was just incredible, and that abyss is what people now are looking to pounce on if we get it. That's the Disney. When if you take a look at when we did our call, and I still think people should go back to listen to that call because it was in real time. Starbucks was at 50, and now it's and we were saying buy. It was at 63. At Disney was 80, so it's at 92. That was this moment in time where there literally was no hope whatsoever. Now, have we gotten hope since then? No, but what's occurred is that we realize if we get into the no hope whatsoever situation, we this time want to be the buyer of G3, and we this time want to be the buyer of Starbucks. So what you're looking, I mean, Clorox is down 8. I said the Clorox was too high. We are on the hunt now for stocks when they hit them like they did the other day because we are oversold. But like the first TARP vote, where a lot of people felt that TARP was going to solve our problems, we had another big leg down. And ultimately, I think that we're going to get that too.
And of course, anyone who's interested in rewatching the members only Action Alerts Plus call can go to actionalertsplus.com. Jim, over the past day or two, we've gotten headlines that Senator Richard Burr and Senator Kelly Loeffler sold holdings that they were after they were in coronavirus briefings, and the average American is now kind of expecting the government to step in and help us before we see a complete economic shutdown. Does this kind of headline erode the trust that the average American is putting in Congress's coronavirus efforts?
In 1984, I met with then Senator Gore, Al Gore, and he wanted me to help him with his portfolio. I was at Goldman, and I said he should be in this stock, that stock, this stock, and he said, "No, I can't buy FedEx. I'm on the committee that regulates transportation. I can't buy this. I'm on the committee about it." I said, "So let's just buy treasuries." He said, "Yeah, that's really right. I should just buy treasuries." I said, "I feel badly. I think we're going to be in this incredible bull market. I'd like you to continue." That was before they were really focused on S&P baskets. I would love you to be in the market. And he goes, "I'm not. I'm representing the American people. Just make sure I don't get hurt. Put me in treasuries." And I remember thinking, darn it all, I thought he'd be a really good client. I really wanted to be able to talk to him a lot. I really liked him. I ended up being a speechwriter for him in the 2000 election. And I'm sorry, in the 96 where he failed. And what happens is, well, the view that he had, which is that they should be focused on their business, is the one that the Senate has to have. And it's kind of embarrassing if they don't have
Over on Twitter, Jim, I've seen a lot of talk about restaurant bailouts, and you're a small business owner yourself. You own restaurants. So
it.
I
Yes.
want you to kind of give us some insight as an owner yourself of what kind of bailout package you think that the restaurant industry is going to need after
Okay.
this.
All right. So let's be clear. There's no demand because you can't go to the restaurants. The people who own the restaurants are people who tend to be wealthier than the workers. I have always been pro worker, not necessarily pro owner, even though I am an owner. I only care about the workers getting the money so that they can stay alive and feed their families. I know that my view is going to be viewed as being heretical because if you support the owner, then the owner will be able to open the restaurant again. That's the theme, right? But that's what I regard as being a false dichotomy. It's not the owner or the worker. You support the worker and you figure out how you can help the owner when this thing is over. Okay. But in the interim, the owner is going to have more capital than the worker. I've never been in a situation where the worker has more capital than the owner. Never, never in all my career. And I've had all sorts of jobs. So, as much as I'm a restaurateur and a bar and a tavern owner and an inn owner, I do not want to bail out because my employees are the ones I'm worried about. They don't have any. And now you can say, well, Jim, it's just a hobby for you. You're really wealthy, whatever. No, a person who has capital is not the person I'm worried about. I'm worried about the person without the capital. It's kind of like you always hear, you know what? We need to help people in America. Let's cut the capital gains tax. Well, only rich people have capital gains. I mean, all these things are, you're going to have to go back to real issues involving the social contract between the people and America. And what you need to do is you need to help the workers. And I'm not going to deviate from that. You hope the owners later on help the workers now.
Let's talk about that. So we're looking at possibly $1,000 to $1,200 being sent to everyday Americans in hopes of kind of helping them after possibly losing their jobs. As someone who's in the restaurant industry and you see this every day, a $1,200 check isn't going to do very much. So what else can the government be doing right now to help these restaurant workers?
Well, it's pretty simple. Say it's not one time only. Say, listen, the longer this goes on, through no fault of you, the more checks we're going to give you. And that's what you have to do. You have to literally just say, look, what we're going to do is support you while we wait for this thing to be beaten. And then we make sure that this testing fiasco stops and everybody wants to be tested can be tested multiple times a day. Because if we have people who are tested and they're healthy, they can go back to work. And once we get enough people who are back to work, then the restaurants can restart. Because those people being tested. We could still have COVID, but at least we can have this whole class of people who, I don't know, let's give them a badge which says I've had it or I've been tested. I don't know how to do it, but we need to get healthy people at work. We also, by the way, need to say, listen, if you're north of 60, you got to stay home. If you're under 60, you can go to work. I don't know. We have to do something that's big think and about age, big think about wealth, and big think about the nation and national defense, big think about certain industries. And some industries have demand, aerospace, so that's certainly willing to give them credit. And then a credit line or give them liquidity. And some industries have no demand. So the industries that have no demand, we have to pay the workers, period. And we pay the workers until it's solved, just like they're getting a paycheck. Not this way. It's like grant. No, the government has to write the paycheck. And the inability for them to see how bad this thing is. Well, let's just say I was with someone this morning and I was saying, will your conscience be clear? Will your conscience be clear? And the answer is my conscience will be clear because I said it was huge and there should have been a lot more money thrown at it. And all you can do is look in the mirror and say, is it small or is it big? And I'm quite confident that when the history is written, those who thought it was big are the ones people are going to say, you know what, that guy got it right, or that gal got it right. And those who thought it was small, well, let's just say history will not look kindly upon you.
Jim, and I really appreciate your answer spanning across all industries because I focused on the restaurant worker, but the truth is we're seeing this across multiple industries. I've got friends who worked on Broadway who are now unemployed and trying to file for unemployment benefits. And it's a very tough world out there right now. So I really appreciate all the insight that you brought to us today. And guys,
it's just, again, like I'm not crying wolf. In 87, I was raked. I mean, I'm sorry, in 2007, I was raked over the coals by everybody, laughed at by the Federal Reserve. I was saying they know nothing. I was accused of yelling fire in a crowded theater where there was a fire. And I've learned, Jimmy Chill has learned, don't do that. It didn't matter. You tried to get everybody out and it failed. Okay. I'm not trying to get everybody out. I am saying that your savings will be tapped very big unless the government writes you a paycheck. And that's a shame because I don't want you to lose your savings. And there's all these calls about let's have a moratorium. That, again, is rich people talking. I mean, a moratorium means the rich live off their savings and the poor live off their savings. But the poor haven't saved anything. Not that I didn't take those 7 courses in communism at Harvard for nothing. But people have to recognize before they say something, think about the impact on the worker because the worker is who needs to be protected because that's the base of our country. And if you're not worried about the base of your country, then you're shameful and you will be outed by me.
And this goes back to something that we talked about a couple weeks ago on this show. Exactly, actually, Jim. You were talking about the credit based economy and how we are credit based. I mean, I don't know. The average American has less than 5,000 in savings, which is a very small amount if you're looking at a long-term plan of being unemployed.
Right. I mean, look, it's time for the rich to be sacrificed. I don't want them to be sacrificed like Lenin, but it's time for the rich to stop thinking about anything that helps them. It's a dichotomous society that we have, and it's time for the rich to say, like Danny Meyer said, "Listen, I'm not the restaurateur." He said, "I'm not taking any money." Now that's what I'm talking. I'm not talking about expropriation. I'm talking about the Danny Myers of the world saying, "Listen, I've got the money. I'm not going to give my salary. I'm going to give it to the workers." That is what's necessary. You don't want to be on the wrong side of a famine, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of this.
All right, Jim, thank you so much for your insight. And guys, of course, head on over to Twitter to tweet at me at by Catherine Ross or at TheStreet. We are listening for your questions. We will be airing them obviously here. And now we are heading over to our Action Alerts Plus daily rundown show over on actionalertsplus.com. If you have not already, you should go check out our Action Alerts Plus members only call, which happened earlier this week. You can also find that on aap.com. I'm Catherine Ross, and we will see you next week.